Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. I got to show you this knife that I got from Swiss Army Grizz. If you're not a subscriber of his channel, you should be a subscriber of his channel, especially if you're into Swiss Army knives. This knife is not a Swiss Army knife, but somehow he came across it and he thought of me and said, I need to send this to Tobias, and he did. And am I ever happy about this knife? I wish I would have done an unboxing of it, because when I opened it up, man, was I ever excited when I first saw this thing. These are really cool. They're not for everybody, obviously, but it is definitely, he was right. It was right up my alley. It's one of those floating fish knives. And if you're new to the channel, you may not know it, but I just love collecting fish knives. And I'm not talking about the ones that look like toothpicks. I'm talking about just about any kind of fish knife. And these floaters are really cool. And this one's kind of special because, well, right there, the tank stamp, Hofritz, Germany. I guess just about everyone made these, but are they not cool? Stainless steel. You've got the classic blade that you find on a fish knife, which is very similar to what you find on a large toothpick. This knife, what is it when it closes up? It's probably 5 inches long, close to it, 4.5 inches long. See that, 4.5 inches long, and you got a blade there. Look at that. The blade is almost 4 inches long, with a 3.5 inch cutting edge. And then on the back side over here, you have the other thing that you find on so many fish knives, which is the, well, you got the cap lifter, the scaler, and then the hook remover. And then you also got the little loop here, so you can actually tie a lanyard to it or whatever. But really, the thing you could also do with this is you could actually attach a float to it. Even though this is a float knife, it doesn't hurt to have a little bobber on there, you know, that's like red and white or something like that, so you can also spot it even easier in the water. And also, if you have a line hooked up to it, you know, put a line that's about a foot long or something, and then you have the bobber on the other end, you know, over here. Well, hold on just a sec. Okay, had to step away. Now what I have here is just a piece of paracord, about 3 feet of paracord. What I would probably prefer to use would be an actual floating fish line, which would, well, work a little bit better than paracord, because paracord might float a little bit, but eventually it will sink. A floating fish line will stay up there a lot longer. But what you can do then is you can tie this off on one end. And let's see here, over, under, you know what, let's just do it the easiest way. Nice little slip knot. There we go. Knife is secured into the line. I could tie it up a little bit better, but for practical purposes, there we go. Then on the other end, you take a float. This is a kind of a small float, but any float would work. With a fish line, you'd be able to get it all the way under, but even with a paracord, you can actually slip it in there, and when the paracord pushes down into there, you'll see that it hooks. It's not going to come out. It would if you had to pull real hard, but even, look at that. I mean, I'm really pulling, and it's staying in place. And for purposes of this, all you're really looking at is a line floating in the water, as well as your fish knife floating in the water, and, well, a float floating in the water. So now you have a much bigger target in the event that your fish knife falls overboard and it's a floating fish knife to begin with. As a matter of fact, with this, like so, if your knife is floated away from your boat or your canoe, say 12, 13 feet out or something, you got a fish line there. All you have to do is just start casting until you get across the line. And you'll hook the line and you'll be able to bring your knife back into the boat. So That's the cool thing about a floating knife. If it falls overboard, you can recover it. If you attach a lanyard that will also float and a float to it, you can definitely increase your odds of recovering it, even if it is floated away from the boats. Any case, I just gotta say thanks a ton to Swiss Army Grizz. I can't thank you enough. This is really a cool knife, and it's from Hofritz. So, I mean, this is a company that a lot of people know about, made in Germany. I've got other floating fish knives. I have to break them out sometimes, but this one is really cool. Got both of the blades that you find on a regular fish knife. What the heck? Let's look at a regular fish knife compared to this. This is definitely a very impromptu video, but what the heck. So here's a 5-inch fish knife. I think this is Saber out of Japan. Yep, Saber Japan. The old number 24. See the blade there? This is, like I said, a 5-inch frame. You see the difference there, 4.5 inches versus 5 inches. This one has the shackle down here, so you could actually attach a line to it with a float. You need a bigger float than this for this knife because this is a pretty heavy knife. Let's compare blades. Look at that blade length. Can you imagine that? The blade length on this thing is actually longer than the one from Saber. It's a longer blade, and you see it's definitely a more toothpicky blade on it too. Nice slender blade, and this is not from somebody sharpening it, where you see the belly there. That recurve is built into that blade so that you can definitely get in there and gut those fish and everything else. So it's pretty cool. I wonder if you could use this for duck hunting too. Drop it in the swamp and you'll be able to find it too, I guess, if it was floating. Let's check the other side here. We got the there's the fish scaler and the fish scaler. This one, I can tell you right now, has a much slimmer line to it, which means that it might, and it's a little longer too, so you might be able to remove a hook a little bit better with this one. I hate these things for removing hooks though. I'd much rather use a pair of pliers. It's safer for the fish if you use pliers than these hook removers. You really need to know what you're doing with these, and the only way you can learn how to do it is practice and practice and practice, which means you basically are ripping up the gills on a fish or something practicing. Also, a lot of people don't know this. There was actually a study done. A guy did his PhD. All right, I'm going to ramble a bit now. What the heck? A guy actually did his PhD on is it better to leave the hook in the fish or to remove the hook when the fish has swallowed the hook. And the interesting thing he found out in his study, and what he was doing is he was hooking fish in different places, like on the edge of their lip, in the gills, down their throat, almost all the way down into their gullet and everything else. And what he discovered is, for the most part, the fish, if you leave the hook in there, if that hook is embedded into the fish and you cannot remove it easily, you're better off just leaving the hook in the fish and just cutting line and giving the hook the fish, or giving the fish the hook, because typically the fish will actually work that hook out of its system, and as in ejecting it out of its mouth, with very little harm being done to the fish. And what he did this by, like I said, putting hooks in different places in the fish. And what he found out was the hardest place for a fish to self-regurgitate the hook is if the fish is just hooked on the lip. If he's got it in his gills, he can work it out. If he's got it down his throat, he can work it out. But if it's just barely dangling on his lip, That's where it's going to take the longest time for the hook to actually be removed from the fish by the fish himself. So think about that when you're thinking about how am I going to get this hook out of this fish. And he did this with both regular hooks, just one piece of a hook, or the three-sided hooks, and it didn't really matter. The fish can get those hooks out of them. A lot of people think that the only way the hook leaves the fish is that it rusts or something like that. No, he actually has his internal muscles that he can twist around and everything and degorge the hook and then spit it out. So don't worry too much about the fish with the hook. It'll work its way out eventually. Any case, back to this other knife I have here. This is the RCMP Canada trapper, but it's a fish trapper. So I don't know how you call that. And this one is, as you can see, this is an old Lighthouse Richards out of Sheffield, England. And let's see the blades on these two. You can obviously tell this is more of a trapper style clip blade. So this is a much slender blade on it, but it is also a longer blade on this one too. And then the scaler. This one's got the nice slim scaler on it. Also with the cap opener or cap lifter. Let's get that out. Yeah, definitely more reach with the hook remover and more room on the scaler. It's got a little bit of a bend going on there. Is that because of this? Nope, that's the way it is. So anyway, just a really, really cool knife. And what the heck? Here's another one of my my floating fish knives. This one has a very short scaler. This pointy thing is rough on a hook remover, but I guess you could. I think you could also probably pull a tick out of your finger with that thing, though. Might help work getting a hook out of your hand better than out of a fish. It also has a nail file there, or a file there, which would come in handy for maybe sharpening a hook. And you have the hook cap lifter and a much shorter blade. And this one is out of Italy. Can't make that out, but I believe it's out of Italy. Yeah. Tea and Rosa, made in Italy. And then the backside here, come on, has a spike. Look at that spike. It's just a half moon spike though. It's just half-sided. I guess you could use that for undoing knots and such. Anyway, there you have it. So the knife has found a really good home, Peter, and I am so happy to have one more floating fish knife in the collection. Now I'm going to have to get a couple more so I can balance it all out. But really a cool knife, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it. I really am happy to have this knife. It's so cool. Now, what to do next? I don't know. Maybe I'll take some slide pictures of this knife only and get the specs on it for you. let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.